Guess you're not interested in sharing,
There you
huh?
go.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to some Fallout 4. Picking up where we left off, we're heading to the Cabot House
Yeah, what?
to pick up a quest. I looked into these quests a little bit, and the quests we get from them maybe all week, or all 3 videos this week, because we're going to go get the quest, and then we're going to have to head north, because the location we'll need to go is like over here somewhere, I think. So, as we head north, we'll hit up the locations that are on the way, including getting, I think, one more settlement for sure, because there's a settlement here that I think always sends us to the Saugus Ironworks. And then there's another settlement here that just gives us a Radiant quest. So it depends on what that one gives us as to whether or not we would whether or not we'll get that one. But we'll head down to Cabot House. I don't know how much we'll be able to explore it right away. But we should be able to do at least some of it. The Silver Shroud radio signal. We must be close to Good Neighbor then. Excuse me. There we go. Yes, we will try this alley then. Private property, no trespassing. Too bad.
Go away.
Place gives me the creeps.
Let me in. Edward
Up
Deegan
yours.
asked me to come here.
Oh, it's you. Good. Come on in.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was him talking. Cabot House, 1711. Apparently the Cabots are actually like a first family in Boston or something.
Let's go meet the boss.
What is this place?
Better to let Jack answer that. Come on.
What this place is actually clean.
Jack, the new guy is here.
One moment. I just have to...
He'll be right with us.
Oh, damn. Hello. Welcome to Cabot House. I'm Jack Cabot.
What is this place?
This is my ancestral home. The Cabots have always lived here, since long before the Great War. If you're asking what we're still doing here, with Boston in its current sad state, well, that's a story for another time, perhaps.
Pleased to meet you, Jack.
And I am very pleased to meet you. Edward finds it tiresome, but I always like to know personally everyone who works for me. Please, have a seat. How about a drink? Edward, the good bourbon, eh? Please, have a seat.
The stuff in here is older than you, Blue.
Now, before we get down to business, I have a question I like to ask all my new employees.
Is this really the time
Don't
for...
interrupt, Edward. The question is this. Do you believe there is other intelligent life in the universe?
The universe is a big place. Anything could be out there.
Wonderful. Most people's minds are too narrow to admit the possibilities of an infinite universe. But I'm not talking about flying saucers and little green men. I'm talking about the hidden history of our planet. The very origins of human civilization. Ancient powers that modern science, even at its pinnacle, could barely begin to comprehend.
That's really interesting.
You're not buying this hooey.
I'm glad to hear you say that. It's become my life's work. My approach is to combine a rigorous scientific method while keeping an absolutely open mind. So much has been closed off to us simply because people assumed they already knew the answers. My father excavated a city in the Rub al-Khali in Arabia, which he dated to more than 4,000 years before the rise of any known human civilization. The structures and artifacts were strange, disturbing even. Clearly not constructed for or by humans. I've spent my life trying to decipher what he uncovered.
Jack, can I tell him what I need him to do?
I'm sorry, Edward. I just get carried away sometimes. You're sending him to look for the missing shipment.
Yeah.
Well then, I'd better leave you to it. We'll talk more about this some other time, when things are less rushed. It isn't important now. Welcome to the family.
Okay. You're officially hired. Congratulations.
What was all that about?
Don't worry about it for now. That's part of the job, by the way. It's best to keep an open mind. Jack may be eccentric, but he's definitely not crazy. The job I got for you is simple. Jack owns a facility north of the city. There's an important package that went missing between there and here. I need you to track it down and bring it back to me. Any questions?
I hope you have more to go on than that.
Don't worry. I don't expect you to do the impossible. Not on your first day. You should start at Parsons State Insane Asylum. Don't let the name spook you. It's just a secure building that we're using. We think the courier got ambushed as he was leaving the place. The guards heard gunfire in the distance, but we don't know exactly what happened. Check in with Maria at Parsons. She's in charge of the security force there. She can point you in the right direction. You all set then?
Should
Yep.
be.
I'll see you soon with the package.
Good luck. Don't get killed on your first job.
Alright. So the funny thing is obviously we haven't done it yet because I don't remember where it is. But there is a spot you can go to. Because I think we may have experienced the spaceship crashing, but I couldn't find it when it happened. But like the screenshot and that. And we haven't actually came across where it is yet. But there is an actual alien that lands. And you can get an alien blaster from him. So even when he asked, do you think there's life outside this place or Earth or whatever? Even if you've done that, like you went there, you found the alien and everything, you have the blaster on you, you can't be like, well, yeah, obviously there is. I mean, here's what happened and look at what I have. Like, that's just not a thing that you can do. But yeah, it's there is a couple things to find in here. I'm not entirely see. So there's a fat man here, and a mini nuke up there. Unfortunately, this would all be stealing at the moment. Excuse me, there is a message. So we're not going to take those, but there is. Hang on. I think it's on the second floor, maybe. No, on the third floor. But yeah, as you can see, this is, as far as I'm aware, the only house in the game that is actually, like, clean, you know? Like, these guys are like, hey, we're going to live here. And we're going to keep it clean. Like, you can't, like, with everything else around them, obviously, shit went down after the Great War. But, like, look, even their books are nice and tidy, you know?
What is it?
Nothing. Looking for something. Oh yeah, there's also a Zeta gun there, which you can steal. I don't remember. I think the Zeta gun is just like an upgraded version of the Gamma gun that you can get later. Oh, damn it, that door requires a key to unlock. That's a shame. And we can unlock the terminal. Okay, let's good. Because I don't think Piper has a problem with me doing this. Majority. Breathe. Chemical.
Sweet.
There it is. Alright. So, 2/10/1968. I think I finally have this new terminal set up correctly. Let's see if this saves. Yes, I can already see that this is going to increase my productivity immensely. Never mind Mother's carping about newfangled contraptions. I see that I mistyped my name on the setup screen. I'll have to check the manual for how to fix that. Will get annoying to see every time I log in. He never fixed it, by the way. It still has a 0 on it. So 2/12/1968. Still learning how to work with this new computer. Searched the manual for an hour last night, but couldn't find out how to reset my name on the login screen. Oh well, hardly worth worrying about right now. I'm sure I'll figure it out eventually. At some point, I'll need to take the time to transcribe all my old paper notes into this system so that I can easily access them. But for now, let me summarize my progress so far in understanding Father's condition so I have a baseline to refer back to here. All attempts to directly remove the artifact have been unsuccessful so far. Father's blood pressure dropped precipitously, and detectable brain waves nearly flatlined each time. The results were the same with total anesthesia. Whatever. I can't say that word. They knocked him out completely. It didn't matter. They put a local one. Didn't matter. Several types of antipsychotics. Fill in exact list and dosage from my notes. Varying dosages of LSD. Oh, I'm tripping. Okay, so this implies that disabling the artifact in some way will be necessary in order to remove it from Father. Is the psychotic effect permanent? Will it survive removal of the artifact, or is the artifact actively and directly inducing it? I've been very cautious with directly physically interacting with the artifact since the very early days. My initial attempts to probe or tinker with it were met with similar physical symptoms in Father to my attempts to remove it. I won't attempt it again until I have a much greater understanding of the artifact's inner workings. Active scanning of the artifact itself has proven useless. I currently consider this a dead end. X-rays so far has proven opaque to all my scans. Obviously, I'm limited to the amount of radiation I can risk subjecting Father to. Radio imaging, again, the artifact is opaque at all wavelengths. Passive scanning has been more promising. This is an area I plan to devote much more time. The artifact radiates across the electromagnetic spectrum and at varying strengths and wavelengths. I have some basic telemetry already built into Father's cell and have been collecting data for the past 2 years. So far, it isn't much more than suggestive of further avenues of research, but I am quite confident that over time and with more sophisticated sensors, I'll be able to gain genuinely useful insight into the way the artifact is controlling Father. Get military contacts from Senator DeSoto. They are likely to have more advanced tech than I can get commercially. Consider making deal for samples of serum if necessary. The physical symptoms and changes that the artifact has induced in Father are as follows. Man, I hope the other things aren't as long as this. Extreme paranoia and psychotic tendencies. This was obvious from the first, since no drug has proven effective in mitigating these symptoms. All evidence points to this being directly induced by the artifact. Agelessness. As yet unidentified modifications to his blood chemistry has prevented any further aging since he first encountered the artifact. In fact, he may be in better physical health than before. Seems likely that the artifact is actively monitoring and correcting any problems it finds with its host organism. Telekinesis, the most surprising ability. I tentatively believe that this is not actual telekinesis, but is something generated directly by mechanisms in the artifact itself, perhaps using manipulation of gravity waves beyond our current technology. Increased physical strength, perhaps a side effect of the artifact's monitoring and improving of its host. This caused some difficulty early on in Father's confinement before he was fully aware of his abilities, but is now merely something to keep aware of. Father's blood chemistry shows various changes from human norms as well as traces of currently unidentified substances. I've proven that at least some of the symptoms described above can be communicated to another person through use of blood transfusion. So far, through pure trial and error, I've been able to produce a serum with several of the beneficial qualities and few side effects. But my actual understanding of what the serum is doing is so far very limited. I'll continue to pursue that as time allows, but it seems unlikely to be of much use in actually freeing Father from the artifact. X-rays of Father's brain show no physical intrusion of the artifact. His skull remains intact, and I can see no signs that it has even penetrated his flesh. At this point, I believe that the blood chemistry changes must be being induced by the artifact indirectly. It is instructing Father's cells on how to manufacture these substances. My most successful intervention to date has been the development of the Bremelin field. Detailed specs and files at Parsons. Earliest crude implementation in 1898 was simply a full-spectrum dampening field tuned to the same frequencies given off by the artifact. It did interfere with the artifact's operation, but at great cost to Father's health. At the time I had no choice. It would have been impossible to confine any other way, but refinement of the field has been a priority over the last decades. I managed to reduce the negative physical effects on Father while more directly blocking the artifact's telekinesis power. So far, my attempts to broaden the field's interference with other aspects of the artifact have been unsuccessful. They bring on similar physical symptoms to attempting to physically remove the artifact, but this remains the most promising avenue of my research. If I can discover how to interrupt this communication, I believe I'll have the key to removing it, or at the very least in mitigating some of the other dangerous symptoms. Good God, that was a long one. So yeah, they're immortal. Like the Cabots, like Jack and them, they've literally been alive since before the Great War. I don't know when our character was born, but they could very well be older than me, despite me having been frozen for 200 years. Alright, Mother and Imogene have left for another European tour while I take care of the latest generational shift. Getting more difficult to make this work in our modern age. Luckily, money still talks. I'll have to find someone reliable to leave in charge at Parsons while I'm gone. Perhaps Anderson can be trusted not to meddle. Oh, thank God that was a short one. So that was in 1995. Like almost 30 years after the last one. So in 96, it's good to be back. John Cabot, long-lost cousin of the Cabots, has returned to claim his inheritance after the freak accident that claimed the lives of Jack and his family. As usual, I have to be careful to respond when people address me as John, and this beard is going to take some getting used to. But such are the burdens of immortality. Anderson proved loyal and uninclined to poke his nose into anything, so that's another hurdle passed. I need to try to get as much done as I can while Mother is away. I find I am much more productive than usual during these transitions. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, you would have to, if you were immortal, didn't want anyone else to find out. I mean, I guess that's a plot in, like, a lot of vampire movies and that, right? Like, that's why they move around in that. And, like, I think in Twilight, having never watched the movie, I think they explain, like, the reason why the boys there go to high school is because if they go to high school, then people will assume they're younger and it lets them stay in the area longer or something. But yeah, like you would have to like leave, change your looks a little bit. Now, thankfully for a guy, that's rather easy. You grow beard, mustache, let your hair grow out a little bit, and then when you need to change, or then when it's time, you can leave and then come back later as a different person, just like shaving your beard, cutting your hair, I guess women can have like change like basically wigs, but I mean there isn't like a huge amount they can do, or at least not to the extent that, or at least not as easily as a guy can. I've been experimenting with some of the new transistors, and it looks possible to make a portable version of the Bremelin field generator. This would be very useful if we ever had to move Lorenzo to a different facility for any reason. A lot more work is necessary, of course, and testing it on Lorenzo is out of the question. I won't risk shutting down the main field, but replicating the current field frequency pattern should at least give us something we could try in an emergency, even if I can't be 100% certain it will work. I've just hired a new fellow to help with the family's affairs. Edward Deegan comes highly recommended. It's too easy for me to ignore the passage of time now, but I've just realized how old Daniel is getting. It'll be time for him to retire in a few years, and it's past time to start grooming his replacement. This is always such a difficult process that I tend to put it off, especially as Mother can be so difficult with anyone new. If Edward proves reliable, I can start easing him into the family secrets. Tricky, but necessary. So far, so good. Mother has taken to him, which is an essential first step. So that one was from 2058. So now to 2075. I've had Robco out again. It seems like a small thing, but this login screen glitch has been driving me crazy. I assumed that it would be fixed with upgraded terminals. You can be sure I was careful to type my name incorrectly this time, but no, when it booted up the next time, there it was again. This time they completely wiped the entire system and reinstalled from their master holotapes. Unbelievably, the typo was still there. They promised to have some of their sharpest engineers look into the problem, but I'm not sure they were being completely serious. If I don't hear from them within a couple weeks, I'll make a few calls. I mean, they may not be completely serious, because they may not think, like, they probably don't know how it could happen. Apparently, the political situation has become very dangerous. I don't pay much attention to current events, but Imogene's latest beau is a high muckety-muck in some government agency, and has been telling her alarming stories about how close things have gotten to a full-scale nuclear war. I wonder if we are following in the footsteps of the ancients who created the artifact. If so, who might our successors be thousands of years from now? Will a cockroach civilization eventually rise to wonder at the artifacts we left behind? 77. It really happened. I don't think I've quite come to terms with what it means for the long run. It's been one crisis after another. We certainly aren't out of the woods yet, but the simple fact that I can write this again means we are better off than most people. I don't have time to write down everything that's happened. Fortunately, Boston was spared a direct hit, My first concern was Parsons, of course. We had to maintain power at all costs. We've always had backup generators more than usual, even for our medical facility. But these were intended for short-term outages, not as a permanent power supply. Then there was the question of security. Edward proved himself amazingly resourceful. He already had plans in place for just such an emergency. Thank God he paid more attention to the news than I did. Still, there's no real planning for the end of civilization. He and I have been at Parsons for almost a month, trying to keep things from completely falling apart. Edward has been out more than he should. I'm afraid he's taken a heavy dose of radiation, but there was really no choice. I'll do what I can for him. I don't know how I could replace him now. Imogen has stepped up amazingly. I had no idea she had it in her. The man we left in charge here proved unreliable, apparently cracked under the pressure and tried to evict Imogen and Mother at gunpoint. He didn't reckon on Imogen, and neither did I. She took charge and somehow kept things secure here in spite of everything. I'll have to see what Edward can do about a more permanent solution for power and security for Cabot House. But for the moment, things look much better than they might. I expect even our resources will be tested to the limit over the coming years, but in some way I am glad of the challenge. One thing's for sure, the end of the world isn't boring. 2080. I think I can finally say that things are looking up. Edward has recruited a more or less reliable security force to protect Parsons. The power situation is stabilized. Edward assures me we now have spare parts stockpiled to last at least 50 years. Moving between here and Parsons is still the biggest problem. There's no sign of any return of law and order, just the opposite in fact, but Edward has proven skilled at dealing with the various groups of thugs that have sprung up. Speaking of Edward, his radiation sickness has developed in a most fortunate way. For a time, I thought he was surely going to die, but then his condition stabilized. He now seems actually immune to further radiation. Apparently this is not unknown in the other survivors, although Edward tells me that a strong prejudice has developed against these people. Hard to understand, as they seem uniquely qualified to survive in this new world. One benefit of the end of civilization that I hadn't anticipated, there's no need now for us to have to die periodically. I can go back to being Jack Cabot again for the foreseeable future. No more neighbors to poke their noses into our business. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense that prejudice developed. I mean, you'd have the people who would hate them because they can survive, because they can live forever, basically. I don't think ghouls die of old age. At least in all the games, they make mention of them being immortal, not just like aging slowly. It could be that in the future, eventually ghouls do die, but it's just they take them so long that none of them have lived long enough. Like that, it hasn't been long enough for one of them to die yet. I mean, they look like fucking beef jerky. I mean, there's gonna be people, and I would imagine because looking at them on here, it's like that's kind of gross. In real life, that would probably be disgusting. Like looking at a ghoul in real life, that would probably be disgusting. And then not only that, but they look exactly like the feral ghouls, and I don't know how long after the bombs fell and ghouls became a thing that feral ghouls became a thing. Like, I don't know if there was just some ghouls that immediately turned feral, or if it was like a thing where their brains degraded over time or something, Alright, 2115. I've lately immersed myself in Lorenzo's work like never before. I wish now I had made more effort, when it was still possible, to try to locate the site of so-called Ubar. After my initial failed attempt to find the site, I dismissed it as both hopeless and useless. Better to focus my energy on the immediate problems, but now, after going over Lorenzo's papers more thoroughly, I believe there are enough clues to the general location a large-scale search using aircraft might have been feasible. Something that wasn't possible in my first attempt, of course. Maybe I could have found some other artifacts that I could have studied more directly, even if they were for completely different purposes. It would be invaluable in understanding how the ancient technology functioned. I've also come to realize how brilliant Lorenzo actually was. I was far too quick to dismiss his theories, all the arrogance of youth. I'm now convinced that his essential premise is correct. The artifact he found was not made by humans. All the evidence was there, but Lorenzo was the only one who put it all together and actually understood what it meant. A staggering thing to think of. If only he had been capable of dealing with fools a bit more diplomatically, he might have gained more general acceptance of his theories and not been driven to such secrecy in his final expeditions. Alright.
Try rebooting the... Oh. You already got it.
Holy fuck, that was a lot of reading. Good God. Alright. So we do have... Yeah, unfortunately it's in... Because there is a journal to be had here, but it is unfortunately in one of the rooms up there that, or in the room up there that we can't get into. Once you
Look at this place. My maid's got talent.
yeah, no kidding. Um, once you do a couple of the quests, obviously some of the stuff is no longer marked as stolen. That, and there's also different ways that you can have the quest play out. Okay, so now we need to head north, which is all the way up here. Now we've already been going for 25 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fast travel to County Crossing. I was going to go to one of the other ones, but odds are if we do, we'll end up in combat. So we're going to go up to the settlement that's just to the north of here. Or that's just a little bit further north of here. And so I'll get to the road, but I don't want to go get too close to either of these locations because I don't really feel like fighting ghouls and super mutants. And we'll talk to them. We'll pick up the quest from there. That should send us to the Saugus Ironworks. And then next part we'll there we go. We'll head into the Ironworks and deal with that place. It is one of the more interesting raider camps in the game. Explode flying. Okay, well, it doesn't actually look like the super mutants have respawned yet, so that's good. But yeah, I figured we'd just follow the road up. And like I said, that takes us to the farm that's here, then the ironworks, and then past the ironworks, or once we finish the ironworks, there is another settlement right around here that we'll go to, and that'll have a radiant quest for us, but then after that, it'll be straight to there. So, granted, once we go there, we do have to go to another location, but I do believe that it's one that's like right next, like close by. I was going to say right next to, but I mean, there are very few locations that are right next to each other. So yeah, next part, like I said, we'll do the Saugus Ironworks, get control of Finch Farm, and then we'll head up just a little bit further north to see the next settlement. Hello, Abraham.
Abraham.
Hey, you! Oh, sorry. Thought you might be one of those forged maniacs, but you don't have the burns. A
What if we
group of
did
them
have
took
burns?
over the old ironworks, and they'll shoot you just as soon as look at you.
Who are the Forged?
Bunch of trumped-up raiders, obsessed with fire and metal. That bastard son of mine, Jake, snuck out in the middle of the night to join him. He grabbed my granddad's old sword. It's the closest thing I've got to an heirloom. I don't guess you'd be crazy enough to try and get it back for me. I've got caps, if that's what you want.
What about your son, Jake? You don't care what happens to him?
I didn't raise my boys to be raiders. As far as I'm concerned, he's dead to me.
Can you tell me anything else about the Forged?
They're led by a guy named Slag. Came in from outside of the Commonwealth a few months back and started recruiting. Mostly they've just been strong-armored folks. But with how quick they've been growing, it's just a matter of time till the raids get worse.
What kind of a sword am I looking for?
One of them old pre-war swords, rigged up to shoot flames from the blade. Probably why Jake thought they'd let him join. So, what do you say?
I'll find it.
You're doing me a big favor, and I'll make it up to you as best as I can.
Alright. So yeah, there are, as you can imagine, as you saw there, it is optional whether or not you save Jake. From what I recall, it isn't all that easy to save him either. So that's Abraham. This is Abigail. That should be his wife. That's Daniel. It's Jake's brother. And as you can see, there's one extra bed. That would be Jake's. This is another one of those locations where once I get it, fixing it up is more or less just putting up some fences and some defenses, and that's pretty much it. If I recall correctly, this one also has a quest for the Institute that has to do with this location, if I'm not mistaken. And I want to say that it has that, like, you have to be careful with the defenses or something, because you can have, like, I don't know, maybe, you know what, I think you can actually build all the way up to there as well, and put stuff up there, if I'm not mistaken, or something, I don't know, I'll figure it out later. But yeah, we're not going to do the ironworks in this part, because it is a rather large location to go through, and it's, from what I remember, it's, I don't want to say complicated to kill, or not to kill Jake. It's very easy to kill Jake, in fact. I want to say that it's difficult to keep him alive, because I do believe, like, when you go there, he's in a position ready to die, basically. And you have to do something to stop, like, to prevent it. But yeah, it's a little annoying, and especially with Piper, because, or any character that has good morality, right? Like, McCready is a good one to do this quest with, because he just doesn't basically care about most of this, you know? Like, he has a little bit of a reaction, but he realistically doesn't care. But characters like Dance and Curie, Preston, Piper, all of them that actually have, like, you know, morals, it's very easy to end up just, like, tanking your relationship with them. But that'll all be for next part. So thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you on Wednesday when we take out the Forged.